It was amazing. They were all really good. It just left me like, you know.
All right, just because we're at 2 and we're running a little bit out of time, I'm just going to get started right now. I don't have a mic, so please listen closely. I'll shout. Our candidates do have mics, so you'll be able to hear. Our virtual candidates here on the screen say hi. Thank you guys so much for joining us. They are abroad right now, so it's a huge deal that they were able to make it. We weren't able to hook up the audio to the speakers for this, so if you can't hear, please feel free to move closer. It just will be coming from the MacBook, but it seems to be pretty okay. So just keep that in mind as you're listening. Thank you to everyone for showing up here today. I'm just going to run a little bit through very quickly about how this is going to work and the format before we get started, and then we'll jump right into it. So again, thank you everyone for showing up today. We will begin. The first 10 minutes will be just a quick introduction for the candidates that we have here today. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to give their little given spiel, which is very exciting. Afterwards, we'll be moving into a Q&A section. We have 5 prepared questions for the candidates that they did receive ahead of time. This is just an opportunity for you to learn more about their policies and learn more about what they are wanting to change at St. Olaf College. Each candidate pairing will be given 3 minutes to answer each of these questions, each of these 5 questions. And then the last 10 minutes will be reserved for the crowd. So if there's any questions, concerns, stuff like that, feel free to put your input in. Otherwise, we'll just leave it for closing statements. So yes, thank you everyone for showing up here today. And I think we're just going to jump right into it. How about we start with our virtual joinees, Ankur and Luke. Would you mind introducing yourselves and saying where you guys are from? Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, I just want to say hello. I hope everyone can hear me. And if not, but thank you so much for accommodating this location difference and for allowing us to participate all the way across the ocean. My name is Luke Butler. I'm from Duluth, Minnesota. I'm a junior quantitative economics major. I'm also doing sociology and anthropology. I'm also doing concentrations in environmental studies and race and ethnic studies. It's a bit of a mouthful. I've proxied for a few different roles within SGA, and I've been an active participant in music and cultural arts on campus. I've also spent a lot of time working with the Taylor Center and also programming in the disco and library space. And I'm currently studying abroad in Barcelona, and I'm running for vice president with my friend, Ankur.
Perfect. Like Luke said, thank you so much for accommodating us and our time difference, location difference. I'm Ankur. I am international student from Nepal, but I've been in Northfield for such a long time. I call it Northfield 2. I'm currently studying abroad in London School of Economics. I'm a junior quantitative economics and political science major, and I have concentrations in international relations and stats and data science. I've been a part of Senate all my time in the Hill. I'm not in the Hill right now, and if I wasn't studying abroad, I'd probably be involved in some ways as well. But I have worked across 4 out of 5 SGA branches in multicultural orgs, and I've experienced working with PubSafe, the presidential leadership team, and showing up to so many different events. Yeah.
Okay, and that's just time, so great timing. Thank you guys for sharing. We will move on to our next candidate here, Declan and Usman, who was not able to make it today.
Hi everyone. So Usman wasn't able to make it today because he's attending cabaret. He asked me if I wanted him to be here, and I was like, no king, go to cabaret, enjoy it. You paid for that ticket, so please take full use of it. I'll say a few things about him. First, Usman is a sophomore. He has 3 STEM majors, which is actually like insane. He works for the Wellness Center. He is a club and varsity athlete here on the Hill. Overall, just an amazing person to know, great researcher, great pure ed. I mean, I could say so many things about Usman. He's also been an SGA Senator for 2 years, which is his experience there. My name is Declan. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I've been an SGA Senator for 3 years, one of those being DI, the other 2 being class year. I am the substance team lead at the Wellness Center. I am the philosophy student worker. I also work for the Lutheran Center. I'm the vice president of Trans Care Collective. I think that's it for the most part.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Under time there, we'll move on to the next candidates. Thank you.
All right, hello. I am Lily Spoerke. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'm a political science major with a concentration in international relations on a pre-law track. I'm a goalkeeper for the Seattle women's soccer team, and I currently serve as the Secretary of Local Impact with the SGA executive team. I'm a member of the Pre-Law Association and the chair of the Bike Task Force, and I work closely with the Election Engagement Group with the Spoerke Center, and I am on the Parking Advisory Committee. And so a little fun fact about me, just so I'm not just spitting things at you. For those of you who know Breaking Bad, I've swam in Walter White's swimming pool. Little tidbit there. And I want to include a little bit as to why I'm running for president. So I get to watch Fiona Mundy in her role every day, and I admire how well she does it. I see her as a genuine role model, and she's a strong, confident, and capable young woman, and I want to take on this role just as she has, and I want to continue the projects and ideas she has worked so hard to get out there. And also, as an athlete, I see and experience a disconnect between athletics and kind of the rest of campus, and I know that that does not just apply to athletes, it applies to everyone across the board, especially those involved in music and other things that take up a lot of their time. And with this role, I will have the opportunity to address it and to help other students who face similar challenges. Yeah.
I'm Annika. I'm running for vice president with Lily. I'm a current junior political science and psychology major. I'm from the Twin Cities originally. And then on campus, I'm a SOAR leader, and I also work as a DEI fellow for the psychology department. And I'm also a member of Figure Skating Club, which Usman is also. My fun fact is that I read 50 books last year, big reader. And mainly I'm running because as a student kind of removed from the SGA world, I definitely see that there's a little bit of a bubble that happens with people involved in SGA and then people outside of it, and I really want to try to bridge that gap and put in the effort to be a good vice president and make an impact on our students.
Thank you very much. Right now, we're going to move into the question Q&A portion. This is a moderated discussion, so please hold any other questions until the end. We will have those for you for the last 10 minutes. Starting with our online candidates here in front of me. Hello again. Our first question for you is, what is your top priority as SGA candidates, and what will you do to achieve this priority, this goal?
So our main priority is representing the wants and needs of OLEs across all branches of student government and also improving general student OLE life. But this priority can be broken more specifically into our 3 main pillars, which are partnership, visibility, and sustainability.
Adding on to that, we're not only running on a single issue because we know that student life doesn't work in like a one goal vacuum. It's more like a system of like multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary goals, and that's what we're doing.
And so what our first main pillar, partnership, would look like on campus, we would want to leverage our SGA alumni network to increase opportunities for OLEs, both in their time here at St. Olaf, but also post-grad, also increasing collaboration with the Piper Center, the Smith Center, and other organizations on campus. Off campus, we'd like to better engage the Northfield community, specifically the small business community, deepening ties with them to potentially make a Holy Perks card, creating real deals for our students.
Our second pillar is visibility. We'll amplify multicultural and inclusive representation through consistent, intentional communication. What this looks like, this includes a social post and shout-outs that celebrate the full range of who we are as bullies. This would include multicultural holiday announcements, potential collaborations with boards, and the range of these announcements and collaborations. You can summarize it from Ramadan to Eid to Hanukkah to Diwali, Christmas, Dia de los Muertos, and beyond. And we just want the SGA to be reflective of our diverse student body.
And then our last pillar is sustainability or sustainable student life. And that would look like a continuous advocacy for meal plan flexibility, continuing to make resources such as Plan B and menstrual products free and available to all students, and advocating for disability accommodations.
Perfect. Thank you. That was around 2 minutes. Moving on to our next candidate. The question was for you to remember, what is your top priority and what will you do to achieve it? Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to be reading off of Google Doc because me and Jusman wrote it up because he's not here. So apologies if you guys have a problem with that. So our main priority is growth and questioning. We seek to do this through 3 categories: transparency, which I know some people have criticized as being a buzzword, as I understand it. Not my fault. I'm sorry, guys. Advocacy and autonomy. This bridges the 3 main needs that we have found in our time in Student Senate. For transparency, this has been a long-standing effort of Student Senate to make happenings of Senate very clear with the posting of our meeting minutes. And this year with the implementation of weekly tabling. However, we have found that regardless of the student population does not actually know what Student Senate does, but more importantly, what the student population does not know is the information we are getting. We feel that one of the main jobs of Student Senate is to be a representative of the student population, but then to relay that information back to the students, acting as a streamlined source of information for both administrators and students. Our plan is to make this information as easy as possible to consume by setting aside time to make weekly videos debriefing the information SGA has received. This can be something like, while Senate has expressed interest in lifting the dry campus policy for XYZ reasons, President Singer has expressed that there is a coalition of donors which give money contingent on us being a dry campus, which feels like information which shouldn't die behind closed doors. This leads us to our second point, advocacy. Usman and I are choosing a different strategy for SGA, where instead of attempting to fix things in the basic social and structural infrastructure of campus, we should instead focus on being a mouthpiece demanding for the changes of campus. This is to say there are many things which the college's responsibility to provide for us, such as housing, security, and food, which are the basics of student life. Instead of trying to forge our own solutions to the problems with it out of our $50,000 budget, we should instead be scaling these issues in appropriate ways to the people who can actually make change. Things like adding water fountains to buildings without them should be an issue of advocacy. I think it's important to remember that these institutions are run by people and people will make mistakes. When they make mistakes, we can choose to react with the labor-intensive work of overriding their shortcomings, or we can instead choose to point out the issues, demand that they be resolved, and work together with these administrators to fix a problem that we know was likely inadvertently caused. This leads to our third priority, which is autonomy. We are not appointed to be liaisons to the college. We are appointed to be representatives of the students. If we are not expressing the student dissent, then there is no point in SGA except as being a tokenized party planner. When, as in the past, we chose to align ourselves with the college as to not disrupt the water too much, we are relinquishing the one main strength of SGA is that we are meant to be an autonomous agent of the college. We can express any viewpoint about ICE, dry campus policy, health access, dietary restriction access that we choose. It is our responsibility to do so. If we wanted to protect our grad school applications, we would not choose to run for president/vice president. Our responsibility in this role is to the students, not to ourselves. And this is no better expressed than through the 3 pillars of our platform.
Thank you. On to our next Carrie. Do you need to repeat the question, sir?
No, okay, so for our top priority, we're really focused on belonging. So what this looks like is connecting different student groups on campus. We've noticed that there's a disconnect through some of our personal experiences, whether it's groups like athletics or music. People might be really involved in research or dance, and we feel that that can create a disconnect between Oli's as a whole, and on a small campus like this, we want Oli's to all feel supported by each other. So what it looks like to connect these groups on campus, we've started to meet with some groups so that we can hit the ground running as president and vice president to understand what different student groups need, how they can be better represented by SGA and feel that they're seen. And then we also plan to continue these meetings, whether it looks like us meeting individually, having senators meet with them and share back in student senate meetings, just so that they can feel that they're really being heard and represented by us. And this will allow us to best represent students. We don't want to put words in anyone's mouths. We want to make sure that we're actually hearing what students need and advocating for them.
Yes, another thing that goes with belonging is the idea of reciprocity. So there are many groups amongst campus, and we wanted to find a way to kind of help them kind of come together as a greater community at St. Olaf. So one way that we've thought about this is how do Olis show up for each other? How do athletes show up for musicians? How do musicians show up for the general student body? And vice versa for all of that. So this could be looking something like working as a whole of the OSA. SGA has 2 sister organizations, Programming Board and PAWS. So maybe expanding Oli Pride Points or finding a way to kind of give some incentives so that people go to music events and performances and that sort of thing. So evidence shows that the more events a student goes to, the more likely they are to interact with people that they don't know, and when they do that, they automatically kind of feel a stronger sense of belonging, and that's something that we really want to hit on and try to encourage as student government, as leaders on this campus. And lastly, athletics and music students are kind of disproportionately disconnected as a starting off point, not only just athletes and musicians, but people who have very busy schedules in general. It's hard to go and show up for other people when you constantly have conflicts and you need some time for yourself and for school, all of that. So kind of starting some of these initiatives so that we can try to figure out ways that people's schedules can come together so our community can come together as a whole.
Perfect. Thank you guys for sharing. We'll move on to our second question. Back to you guys, Luke and Ankur. Our second question is, what gaps do you notice between the college that you plan to address in the upcoming academic year?
So one thing that's already been touched on by a few of the other candidates here is that a lot of resources, events, and communities within St. Olaf and the greater Northfield area often go unnoticed. That's not because they don't exist, but because they don't reach the right people. So we aim to deepen ties with Northfield for student discounts, making things more affordable for students, as well as collaborating with other Senate members to provide more pathways for students to engage with Northfield resources. We would also like to increase the collaboration between student organizations on campus, allowing for campus events and resource distribution programs to reach more students. There are so many new resources within the Piper Center, Smith Center, library, academic departments, clubs, and other bodies on campus that I learn about every single day. And as a frequent event goer at St. Olaf, specifically within the music department, I've noticed there's a lot of overlapping with specific dates and times that it feels like some easier, greater communication would be beneficial for these events.
Adding on to that, we've also noticed that there is a lack of student participation in Senate work, and would love to see more opportunities for non-members to get involved and learn more about the representative work that we do. We think that community building and active engagement in representative work is so important now more than ever, and would like to put immense focus on multicultural visibility. We have Olis from 102 different countries and 49 states, all like diverse religions, ideologies, and this visibility matters to strengthen this sense of belonging, especially in a turbulent external environment and time as of now. Yeah.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to you, Declan.
So this is Usman's specific point. Tampons and dorms is something he's been very passionate about since freshman year, as well as condoms and dorms, which is a res life issue, which we will be talking to him about. As for more generalized projects that we have together, I'd like to reevaluate Northfield Elementary, Middle, and High School for our students and athletes, so students are interested in education or youth intervention and wellness can both help our community and garner experience at the same time. Create a clear and universal definition and use case of the amnesty policy on campus, and require training for all student workers and public safety officers so that everyone who needs or would be asked about the policy understands its intention and use case. Try to dissolve a general apathy that people have for Student Senate. I think people don't care because they don't feel like they're being represented. I think there also needs to be a conversation around the politicized and hierarchical language in SGA. I think there also needs to be a conversation around paying people who are supposed to represent students, and because you're being paid by the college, you have a kind of second interest to represent the needs and kind of demands of the college rather than represent the students themselves. So I think it might be a conflict of interest that, while I don't think people would like the idea of not getting paid for immense work, it might be a conversation that needs to be had, or at least talked about, so that we can understand a better reasoning of how the student leaders on campus can be autonomous from special interests.
All right, thank you. On to the next candidate,
Similarly to what we were talking about before, issues of connection on campus are huge for us, definitely something we've noticed within the college student body. But we've also noticed a divide between admin and students overall. A lot of students don't understand why the administration makes certain decisions and how they make decisions, and that can make them feel a little bit lost, especially if there's underlying circumstances that aren't being disclosed. So we really want to just help facilitate the communication between admin and student body.
Yeah, so this can look like several different things, but kind of what we had in mind is during meetings where we get to directly meet with presidential leadership team and other higher up figures on campus, is asking these questions about decisions so that students do genuinely have an understanding of what's happening. So can you provide information to students about the decision that's been made? So what the consequences will look like, why, and that sort of thing. Second question is, why did you make this decision? Admin has their reasons. Whether we agree with them, whether we don't agree with them, they're not making decisions willy-nilly. They have to make important decisions. They have to make difficult decisions, and they won't all be met with positive feedback from students. And third question is, how did you come to this decision? So not only why, but how. Kind of, what did this process look like? Was it a discussion? What did the voting look like? That sort of thing. And an example that we have is with the activities fee that has been instated. It seems like a really big deal, and there wasn't very much information that was put out with this fee. It's really not a huge change. Most college campuses have an activities fee of some kind, like Carleton, Gustavus, they have them. It's really only an 8% increase from what we were paying before. It's just now separated out to go directly towards student activities. But more discussion of why did they make this decision, how did they come to this decision, and then how can we get information out to students for why they did what they did and what that looks like for coming years.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Moving on to our third question of the Q&A series, back to Lincoln Encore. Our third question is, what makes your campaign different from the other candidates?
Thank you. So what makes our campaign different from three candidates? We have three points that we like to put forward. Number one is breadth and depth of experience. Number two is our campaign having two aspects. And number three, time apart from St. Olaf. Elaborating more on time and the breadth and depth of experience, we've worked across 4 out of the 5 engineer branches, like I mentioned before, that is Campus Affairs Board, Community Impact Board, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Board, and the Student Senate, music boards, BugSafe, Presidential Leadership Team, and we bring experience on how to be active communicators and liaison between admin and the student body. Our diverse experiences across many Olaf organizations and communities give us a unique platform to represent everything that happens here on the Hill. Number two is I'd like to bring forth like the two aspects of our campaign, the OLI Manifesto and the 3 pillars. So the OLI Manifesto shows what tone we want to set in the general work of student government as a whole. And if you guys haven't seen it, you guys should follow at Ankur.4Olis on Instagram to see what the OLI Manifesto is about. And I mentioned 3 pillars. And lastly, like time apart from St. Olaf, I think one of the reasons why people chose St. Olaf as our college was because there was so much emphasis on how close-knit the community is. And studying abroad, we realized that truly, like St. Olaf community is one of a kind, and this is our like one last chance to leverage all the SGA work and just involve student body involvement work that we've done and make like one lasting change before we leave. It's been like really close to both of our hearts, and yeah, we hope we get a chance to do that.
Perfect. Thank you very much for sharing. We'll move on to you, Declan. Do you need to repeat the question at all?
I think I'm all good.
Perfect.
What makes our campaign different, I'd say, is I know transparency has been called a buzzword at Olaf already. But generally, I think we're going to take a new approach to it. We're going to do something radically different where there has been sort of this, how can I say this politically? There's been a way in which all the information between the president's leader team, regents, has kind of been watered down so that students can receive it in a way that's understandable for them and doesn't misconstrue the intent of the regents or the PLTA. I think that needs to kind of be cut down more, and so people are getting more raw, direct information. I also think people need to know exactly why and why things don't happen. I think there needs to be a handbook for student senators listing contact information, why previous things have failed, and conversations around those things need to be readily accessible so that if student outrage is, if students are upset about something, they need to know it, and we don't need to water it down so that students aren't upset about it, or they just don't know about it. Because if students are upset about something, it's our job as SGA to fix it. And that's not to say that that's explicitly what makes us different from other candidates, but I think that's kind of a fire that me and Usman have that really changed the way that we're going to approach SGA this year, and specifically interacting with senators, requiring senators to be sitting in the writing desk to have proposals written by students, having consensus student opinions be turned into resolutions so that a student opinion is formed separate from the college, beginning the process of removing political and hierarchical language, creating dedicated time to help support senators produce their goals within Senate, so you're not having to spend as much time out of Senate doing things, having sessions where senators can brainstorm ideas for bigger projects. I mean, I have a list of ideas about what we want to do, but to kind of get away from a script for a second, I think we are different because we want to approach things with the idea that we could always be wrong with something and that we're always doing something in the mindset of we are going to need an adjustment somewhere and things are going to hit the wall, something is going to go wrong, but it is our best intent to fix it and to fix it so that we're always doing things in the best interest of students and with student voices leading the way that we approach things.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yes, okay, so we have a couple things that set us apart from the other candidates, one of which is we have a little bit more knowledge about the structure of SGA, not only with Senate, but also with the executive team, and how the executive team operates. We have president with executive team, vice president with Senate, and obviously there's collaboration between the two, so we're both at each of those meetings and sessions, but also understanding how secretaries work, how they work together, how they work with their boards. That's something that I at least have firsthand experience with. I'm the only current exec team member running. Part of that is because almost everyone is graduating. But also it's it's continuity of student government, right? So it's a lot more difficult for people to come in to something and to pick up kind of where other people have left off. And what Fiona and Garden have really started to do with making SGA accessible and visible is something that we genuinely do want to continue. I currently serve as a secretary, so I know what it's like to run a board, to interact in these executive team meetings. And one example of kind of how involvement works with this, I chair the Oli Bike program. It's a direct example of there was a need from students, a need of transportation into the city of Northfield. And I, among two seniors at the time who graduated, heard this and started putting a plan in motion. So there's proposals to Senate that's going and just presenting and advocating for students. And then now it's an operational program that when it was launched in the fall was a massive success. The bikes were checked out almost all the time. and we're really excited to watch it again in the spring. So, yeah.
And then I also wanted to point out, I know that I have not served in any branch of SGA, and that may seem like a disadvantage from the outside, and I definitely would have a learning curve to go through as I took on a role as vice president. But I also have a unique perspective and some fresh energy that I feel that I could bring to the role of vice president, and just overseeing Student Senate as a whole. I think that I have a little bit more of the perspective of what an average student on campus feels about SGA. I haven't been inside of it as much. I think that SGA does a lot of work, but I don't necessarily know what that work looks like. So I think I'm really passionate about making sure that we communicate about the work that's going on, because I know there's a lot of hardworking people involved in SGA, and I think the student body should acknowledge that. And then we also are the only...
All right, and that's time.
No, you're all good.
3 minutes to each. Thank you so much for being wary of that and working towards that. We just don't want to go over time. So moving on to our fourth question, we're going to go back to you, Luke and Ankur. How will you ensure SGA listens to all students' needs and ensures transparency?
We would like to ensure that SGA listens to all student needs by creating frequent opportunities for OLEs to engage in SGA and voice their concerns and wants. So this might look like hosting feedback forums through OLE the Lion, where students can submit their questions and concerns that we would then review, look through, and help work into our work that we do in Senate. And we'd also like to host town hall style forums to better engage with the student body, ensuring that needs are met and conversations are continuously had between students and Senate. And transparency is something we uphold throughout our entire campaign, because we've also made visibility a structural commitment and not just a singular value. This being an elected position, we also hope to be held continuously accountable by the OLEs that we would represent, so acting on our visions as well as the goals of the students we represent. We hope that our Senate work would evolve throughout the year to best meet potentially changing needs of our campus. And I also, hearing all these great points from the other candidates, would love to increase the collaboration with other candidate members if we were to get elected.
Our points are also fully out and transparent to our website. Again, I'm going to plug in our Instagram page. Go and read our platform. If you have any questions, feel free to DM us, email us. We'd be happy to explain it more.
Perfect. Thank you guys. Moving on to our next. Declan?
I think Karen and Fiona have done a great job opening up opening up transparency already through different forums, but I think there needs to be a kind of a recognition that sending out emails doesn't work. I think anyone who's ever sent out a student email realizes there is some just amount of students who won't do it because inbox emails just get flooded with something. So I think there needs to be an express interest in trying new and creative ideas until something approaches SGA that really sticks for both the students and SGA from a practicability standpoint and for a student engagement standpoint. So that comes with, I think, trying a lot of new things. I know for the philosophy department, we've had a weekly question that we put up, and we've been getting good responses on that. So I think it's just opening our minds to different possibilities, how we can interact, not necessarily sticking to one thing. I also know that speaking for the other is a massive issue that I'm worried about constantly. As a person who has a perspective of privilege and isn't even from Minnesota, we all have the identity of the students on campus, but obviously I hold an identity that might not recognize other things. This one holds me accountable for a wide variety of things, but obviously there is identities that we won't understand even between the two of us. And I think it comes from directly listening to students. I was augmenting a paper for an application the other day, and the best approach I could say of how I will approach speaking for the other is through the example of legal representation of indigenous peoples, right? So often people familiar with the American legal system who want to represent indigenous scholars or indigenous persons kind of face this battle of not being from the tribe or not being from the nation in which they're representing. So I think the real output there is being able to take the voices and express concerns and present them without putting any external framework on that you hold, and being able to say, like, this is your goal, I'm going to put your goal forth no matter what I think about it, no matter what I think might make it more palatable, because this is your goal and this is your expressed interest. So I think that's a way that we could help represent all student voices on campus. I'm also a former athlete, which may help kind of that responsible in music.
Thank you.
So we talk a lot about transparency, but what exactly is transparency? We've talked about how it's kind of like a word that's thrown around a lot, but we really want to emphasize visibility and accessibility. So through initiatives like tabling, which I know are going on, making sure that the student body sees the work that SGA is doing and feels like they can connect with SGA, and then also being able to receive feedback from general students. And a lot of this transparency we also want to be through education, because a lot of students don't necessarily know exactly what SGA does and what SGA can do versus can't do. And SGA can connect them with a lot of resources, but we want to make sure that students know where their energy and thoughts are going and how we can best put them into action. And I'll give Lily a chance to talk about some concrete examples.
Yes, so we have a couple ideas. These are not fully fleshed out. That wouldn't be until starting next fall. But an idea we had was kind of connecting with the mess to communicate more with students. Kind of having a section in the mess potentially where there are fun facts about SGA. So we're educating about the structure of things. So like, what does the local impact board do? What does student affairs do? That sort of thing. But also kind of having almost a current events kind of thing. So we are communicating to students, what are we doing? What are we working on? What things are happening so that so students understand more of what we're actively engaged with, and that goes for president, vice president, secretaries, exec team, all boards, but also with Senate. Another example that we have discussed with Senate is bringing orgs or executive teams of orgs to Senate twice a month. It doesn't necessarily need to be a super official thing, but we want to start trying to increase some attendance with Senate so students understand what's going on. And if an entire org cannot come to Senate, we have a senator who represents the constituency to go out to those orgs and talk to them and kind of have a presentation so that we understand what students are needing. Also, we really want to reiterate, kind of promote, distribute the Student Voice Forum that already exists on the SGA website. This is a forum where students can go and talk about issues and needs or things they like, don't like about things going on campus.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our fifth and final question, back to you guys looking on core. Finally, how will you guys act as a bridge between the student body and the college administration to ensure that students' concerns are addressed and met?
So we plan to act as a bridge, between the student body and the college administration through active listening and adopting a curious attitude, fostering a collaborative and amicable environment. That being said, we're also not hesitant to be bold and bring up difficult conversations if need be, and we will definitely be approaching this with utter curiosity, empathy, and a go and get it done mindset. Yeah.
And then, so specifically on the student side, this would look like, as you mentioned earlier, hosting regular open forums, creating feedback channels between student admin, frequent check-ins with student organizations, affinity groups, and other underrepresented communities to make sure no voice gets left unheard. We'll also continue to participate in Oregon student-led events as we still be students in addition to senators, and hope that people would feel comfortable voicing concerns and bringing up Senate issues to us on a day-to-day, and being friends or just people that would know us as senators. And then on the administration side, this might look like scheduling recurring meetings with key offices such as the Dean of Students, Academic Affairs, President's Office, Campus Life, so that concerns are addressed in real time and don't get left untouched.
Perfect. Thank you. On to you, Declan.
I think the main way that we would serve as a bridge between the student body, admin, and SGA as a whole is kind of decentering SGA from this position of we are separate from the students, we are for the students, we only run because students allow us to. We are the direct voice of the students, and if we are not that, then we are nothing. So I think it's our responsibility to really get in there and kind of get in the weeds and try, just fight for student rights, fight for student voices, fight for what we think students represent, right? I think that there has to be a passion that comes through to admin when SGA people speak to them and voice their concerns to them. And there has to be an openness to listen to admin about the challenges that come with implementing things that students want. So I think me and Usman, I think both are just extremely passionate people about this. I think both of us love SGA. I think both of us are very critical, but like at the end of the day, SGA gave me a family when I really started out here at the college and didn't have many people to rely on. I've seen what SGA can be, I've seen what SGA can do for people, and I think it's amazing. And I think having conversations and centering student voices, but being able to question the admin and do all these things are just the best opportunity we can possibly do. And it's about effort, it's about constantly trying, it's about pouring our hearts and souls into this, and just doing everything that we can to possibly ensure that we are doing everything that we possibly can, using existing infrastructure, creating new infrastructure, having open forums, conversations, dialogue. You know, if I need to sit in Bunt Rock for 8 hours a day on a free day, I will. But there just needs to be something so that students can hear their voices heard and feel like they're heard. And without that, I don't feel like SGA is anything. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so for us, we know that president and vice president are like intrinsically linked to the administration. Part of the role is to be this liaison between the presidential leadership team and the student body. So we hope to do things like sending out regular pulse surveys and sharing those results with admin just to make sure that there's an ongoing connection and to update the student body about these conversations. And we also want to act as representatives of the student body as we go to talk to administration, but then we're also linked to the college as a whole. We're here for the better of St. Olaf altogether, so we hope to work with the presidential leadership team to facilitate the needs of the student body, but to make the campus better as a whole.
Yeah, and again, we just want to stress the divide between students and admin. However, we recognize that there have been some major improvements in the last year, but even in the past couple of years, that have really made SGA more accessible to students, and students are starting to feel that. But it takes longer than a semester, it takes longer than a year to reach every student on this campus. And even those who don't want to be involved with it, that's okay, but the option for them is still there. So we want to continue these efforts that have been made, and we want to expand upon them. And expansion looks like finding more concrete ways for students to feel these efforts. So how do we, for students who don't necessarily read their email, how do we reach out to them? How do we resonate with them? For people who do read their email, what are we saying in these updates that makes them feel like something good is coming from them? Or even when there's a decision made that by SGA, by admin, by whoever, that is not in favor of what they wanted, how do we present it in a way that's respectful for everybody? And a lot of this just looks like talking to students about, do they read their emails? If they don't read their emails, how do we reach them? That sort of thing.
Perfect. Thank you everyone for sharing. That was our last question. Right now we'll move into audience questions before we do closing statements. So is there anyone who has any questions from the audience at all? So.
Yeah, many of you referred to initiatives to change the way that students interact with SGA or with Senate. I know, Luke, you mentioned Senate engagement in town halls. Declan, you mentioned making students more aware of SGA initiative history and what SGA has been able to accomplish historically, as well as this writing desk initiative you mentioned. Could you talk a little bit about what has prevented you from engaging with those issues prior, and what resources of the presidential or vice presidential position would enable you to tackle those issues specifically?
I know that Luke, your name came up. We'll start with you and then go to Declan.
Okay, awesome. I think primarily for me, the biggest issue I've noticed there being a lack of communication between student body and Senate work has been just a lack of visibility with these connections. So I know that there exists a sort of forum where you can put in suggestions for Senate work, but I think it's just in a small box outside of the mail office, and it's kind of an area that maybe not many people go by or know about. So our primary solution to that would be increased visibility of forum events and also hosting continuous forums that people could rely on.
Adding more onto that, I think I mean, yes, it was asked to Luke, but about the part of the question that says what was preventing you from doing this, I think just the resources, the budget that's allocated for president and vice president will be able to like supplement these events with I don't know, incentives that would like make people want to go to these forums, want to attend these forums and like participate more. And the other thing is also about there has been no sort of like I remember like one like town hall meeting being organized, and that was like invoked by the president and the vice president. So even as being part of the senator and wanting to like hold forums, I wasn't able to do so at all because I don't know. I don't think there's like any way senators can do it except for like a proposal and everything, and that's very bureaucratic. And just being the unique positionality of president and vice president gives you some sort of like a faster process to like hold these forums.
Declan?
Could you repeat for me what specifically you referenced?
Sorry, the things that you said, or the thing that, okay, yeah. I mean, you mentioned about this writing desk thing that you want to implement, as well as you talked about like students not being aware of what SGA or Senate have done historically. What initiatives have passed, what accomplishments, and what resources SGA has supplied to students.
So the writing desk idea was completely stolen from a senator last year. I'm forgetting her name, but it was an idea that was ongoing last year. I actually don't know the conversation that was surrounded about it. I'm sure that I'll find out after bringing this up why it was not passed last year. But so the idea has been around for the writing desk, and it is a personal failure on my part not to bring it up earlier this year. I work 3 jobs, which isn't an excuse. I still have the responsibility of a student senator, but I would be the first one to admit I dropped the ball on my student senator responsibilities this year. I think I could have definitely been more active, although I do have responsibilities outside of Senate. Secondarily, to the point of not letting people know, I think there's been a peacekeeping initiative between admin and Senate so far. Also, there's not a general forum for people to really get that information. I know in Only the Lion, there's posted what events we have. But I think specifically for senators, it's important for them to know like what initiatives have been ongoing. I think we can definitely publicize it more. It just is more of a conversation I think SGA needs to have internally of how do we want to approach it, right? So that students know. One big topic is the parking lot near Rand down to Scopeland. There's an elephant trail going down that hill. I've approached Kevin Larson. Fun fact, Brandon Cash approached Kevin Larson, or not Kevin Larson, the facilities coordinator in his time about building stairways down there because everybody uses it, but when it gets muddy, it's dangerous. And it just can't happen. You'd have to steep the stairs in a way that's too expensive, and the infrastructure is just too much for the school, is their explanation. So I think it's more about how we want to get that information out and how is it amendable for both sides so that information is easily disseminated. I think that conversation is more in the role of president and vice president as it's currently laid out, as those roles are currently laid out, than for a senator, which is the role I've had.
Thank you. And I know for your guys' pairing, you don't have experience in SGA before, but so Lily, how would the presidential position kind of help utilize and like be able to allow you to utilize different skills, different platforms to continue what you want to do?
Yeah, so I mean, with the role of president is there is a broader reach that we have. There is a little bit more of an oomph behind emails and that sort of thing that we send to administrations, faculty, staff, that sort of thing. And so kind of when we reach out to admin, to faculty, to staff, whoever it is, we're kind of trying to figure out a way that they can provide as much information as possible within the realm of what they're allowed to say, and then we translate that to students. I mean, with local impact, I mean, I don't meet with PLT all that often. I do have conversations with Mayor Zweifel sometimes, but some of those are not. Sometimes it's just plans that are happening. They're very beginning pieces. Some of it's not even relevant to share because nothing's going to stem from them. It's a conversation. So kind of having these discussions about what is relevant to share with students, because if we're talking about a plan that's at the very beginning stages and then it doesn't end up going through, when students hear about it, they think of it as a failure on SGA's part, on admin's part, when maybe it just was not possible in the first place. So again, this is educating through transparency of what can SGA do and what can SGA, where does SGA fall short? Not necessarily because we're not doing our jobs, but because it's not within the scope of our jobs as well.
Thank you. And thank you for your question. Any other questions from the crowd? Yes.
You guys all talked about your relationship strategies with the admin, and you all have different strategies that you mentioned. And I'm wondering, what will your position would be if there's a clear difference of interest and action between the admin and the students, where the majority of the student body holds one opinion, but it's not being moved forward by the admin. An example has been like strategies against ICE this term. We had a lot of discussion about that, I feel like, in the student body that didn't like align with the admin. In that situation, what is your course of action next? Like if clearly it's not going to be a common ground, then what do you do next? Like, is there an action that you would take? How do you communicate that conversation with the admin? How do you communicate it to the student body, like more concretely?
Were you able to hear that, Luke and Uncle?
Yes. Well, thank you for asking that question. I think that's a very relevant, important, and heavy question, and we'll try to answer it as best as we can. The difference between admin goals and student body goals, I don't know, for someone experiencing all of these intersectionalities in identity, queer, BIPOC, international, neurodivergent, I feel like, I don't know, I feel for this issue passionately, and we do everything in our power to continue lobbying or continue advocating for what should be done for the students, and we can't guarantee what the admin's reaction is going to be, but what we can guarantee is that we're never gonna just give up on advocating for people's needs and advocating for what should be done. And yeah, I think I came across this as a freshman senator when I authored the first resolution of the year, and it was a very difficult conversation that we needed to have with so many different people. And even though I was very new to it, and I don't know, the fact that I was passionate about it and the fact that I refused to advocate for it regardless of what the outcome is going to be, I think that was a learning curve for me, and we continue to do that in our positions as president and vice president as well. If you have any more follow-up questions, feel free. I know this was a layered question.
And what about our other candidates here today?
Tough question for sure. I'd say it obviously depends on how admin is refuting it, right? So if it's something like a legal precedent where the school will get shut down if they don't follow certain guidelines or restrictions, there needs to be a conversation related to the students about the intrinsic position the college must take for its own survivability, despite student outrage, because the college does have a responsibility to survive to its investors, to students, to parents. If it's something else though, and it's a position of PLTA and admin that doesn't kind of necessarily break that line, I think you need to put more heat on them. I think, right, there is a sense in which the school only runs because of the students, and I think for us that would look like organizing protests, putting out different statements, reaching out to Carleton, reaching out to different local news organizations, and kind of putting the heat on admin in them for this position, right? If we are truly kind of student leaders and student voices, right, we need to be able to press admin to be able to respond to our claims and say why they don't want to do this. And if there's a fundamental thing where they say, we are just not going to do this, we're not, there needs to be maybe shutouts, maybe there needs to be more radical versions of protest happening on campus to really oppose those actions. And that needs to be done safely, that needs to be done within guidelines so that students are protected and safe. But I think that's the necessary next step if the situation requires it. I think that's something that SGA could clearly advocate for, demonstrate, and lead. And I think that's part of what me and Usman have talked about was kind of separating ourselves from the goals and not fully aligning ourselves with the needs of the college, but rather the needs of the students.
Yeah, and so again, this is a difficult question, and especially because SGA is an inherently nonpartisan body. It's finding a way to kind of take out some of the politics of some of these things and reduce it down to things like with the ICE presence in Northfield to safety and safety of students. It's not about whether you agree with what ICE is doing or not. It's how you bring it down to the core issues for every student on this campus. So something like safety. And when admin is reluctant to discuss it, or they are reluctant to make a statement, it's talking to them and asking questions. So it's what's it going to take for them to discuss this? What's it going to take for them to rethink their decision? How much of the student body needs to be in support of something like this? So that goes with when we have our regular pulse surveys going out about decisions, we get feedback from those with the regular discussion. That's all that we would already be implementing, and finding a way to present that those results to admin in a way that's convincing, saying that, hey, students care about this. This isn't just like 10 people who are upset with you. This is whatever percentage of the student body is saying, hey, this needs to change. We need more from you from this, and kind of facilitating a calm and careful discussion about what will it take to get you to rethink this, to discuss this, and to listen to student needs.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. Well, this is a question specifically for like one pair. Is that?
Yeah, that's totally okay.
This is a question for Declan and Usman. You talked about like this peacekeeping like initiative, or like sense of putting a blanket, I guess, on SGA leadership when it comes to leadership and administration talking and making sure that things are, quote, peaceful, or that we keep the interests in mind of administration just because we're paid. I'm curious about who you've talked to about this that made you develop this point of view about SGA leadership. You said yourself that you, quote, like, dropped the ball this year and haven't really been engaged in SGA. And so how do you develop this opinion of SGA leadership if you said yourself that you're not really engaged in SGA right now?
I'd say there's a fundamental slip up, or either by me or you, I can't remember the exact language, but I think dropping the ball for me means I didn't live up to the expectations that I set for myself and what I do, not necessarily that I wasn't engaged in SGA at all. I think throughout multiple projects I've proposed and helped with throughout the year, I have been engaged in a meaningful way, but my personal standard is higher. I hold myself to a personal standard that requires me to be at a certain level that I wasn't. I believe I dropped the ball in that way, but I think I was engaged to a pretty reasonable extent before SGA considered my other scenarios and responsibilities. As for the conversation of how I think we've kind of safeguarded it, well, first of all, SGA, this is something that all students should know. SGA has closed meetings in which SGA senators can't talk about things that happen outside of that meetings. We had one freshman year. I won't talk about that, but that was one of the things that led me to believe that there is a peacekeeping initiative within SGA. Second of all, during an initiative last year in which I proposed a trans proposal, or a pro-trans rights resolution for SGA, which is a statement that SGA puts out giving the stance of the college, or giving the stance of SGA separate from the college. We had multiple SGA executive members speak about their experiences talking to PLTA members, and then that fed in directly to the conversation of SGA, which meant that executive members from the PLTA were having influence on SGA rather than strictly student opinions, which I believe is kind of corrosive to the discord of simply student forward thinking. Thirdly, we had a conversation earlier this year, me, you, and Fiona, about town hall discussions. Town halls are something that have been talked about since Chow was president, or Chow and Sophia were president vice president. And my understanding was there used to be a conflict in doing town hall discussions because students would blurt things out, and specifically yell explicitives at Susan, Rundle Singer, and there would kind of be this conflict behind it, and we had a conversation about free speech, what we thought was the correct way for students to engage, how we could get students to engage in a way in which we didn't think their free speech was being stifled, but was still being meaningfully maintained while interacting with PLTA members. And I think we just have ideological differences on how those conversations need to happen between PLTA and students. And that's kind of what led me to that kind of belief that we're safekeeping or safeguarding some of the interests of the college in our own. I'm also, I think I just kind of hold a mindset that's more radical on the basis that we shouldn't give respect based on titles. We should give respect based on the merit of the things that people do, and if people don't live up to their expectations of their roles, that's not due for the respect that their title gives them. So that's also part of the initiative to get rid of some of the politicized and hierarchical titles within SGA.
Right, thank you for sharing. We don't have any more time for questions, unfortunately, so I'm sorry to cut people off. Would candidates still like to give like a 30-second closing statement? Yeah, we can start with you, Luke, and Ankur.
We just wanted to leave a closing remark that kind of highlighted the key points of our Olaf manifesto that we mentioned earlier. And these tenets would define the course of our campaign and our tenure in SGA. So these are: find any excuse to talk to someone, invite others into your world, know what's yours to use, be curious, not judgmental, celebrate loudly and often, and carrying his rebellion, care boldly, and make St. Olaf better than you found it.
And Luke is in Barcelona, I'm in London, and I don't know, we just thought that we owe it to the community to, give it like our one last shot, one last chance. And I think we've made a very thoughtful, intentional platform, laid out our goals, are transparent with it. And yeah, I feel like if we win, we could definitely, all the other candidates, they have lovely platforms too, but I don't know, I can definitely see something beautiful being built here.
Lovely, thank you guys. Declan?
I think if nothing else, Usman is a much better orator than me, so I wish he was here to kind of give his take on everything. But we're passionate. I think that at the end of the day, if nothing else of what I said today kind of reveals itself, I think it reveals I'm passionate. I believe that there is a vision for SGA, which I have, which is bright and it's fun and it's representative of all students. And I just have so many ideas and hopes and passions for how this could be a network of friends, community, students that all are leading towards one unique goal: to make the school better and to make their home better. And yeah.
Yeah, so Annika and I are truly just hardworking, kind, and passionate people, and this can be put towards really anything, but we're choosing president and vice president because it's the forum that we believe will have the most impact on campus. This is truly a beautiful and unique place that deserves to have so much respect and deserves to have the absolute best. And especially as the only two women running, we believe that we can truly represent another body of students that cannot be represented to the same extent with the other candidates, though they are wonderful people with wonderful platforms.
All right,